Hello and welcome to the Irish Hunting Podcast, the no bullshit podcast for the outdoor enthusiasts. If you're into hunting, fishing, fine wines and even finer foods, you've come to the right place. So pull up a chair.
Welcome back to this week's episode number 90. This week, we chat to Larry Bolger, who heads up the Irish Grey Partridge project. We discuss this once abundant game bird, now in serious decline, and what clubs all around the country are doing to reverse this trend. Enjoy this one, folks.
Larry Bolger, welcome to the Irish Hunting Podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
I tell you, lad, this is a long time in the making. We've our schedules just haven't lined up the last couple of months, but we said we better get it done before all hell breaks loose and pheasants and partridge and all start to lay. How are you keeping?
Oh, not too bad. I just wondering why it was so long to get me on. That's all.
I know. I think we sat down. I think when I had Richie on, actually, it was the first time we had chatted, and I think you were tied up before Christmas with courses and bits and pieces, and me over the Christmas, and then it just 1 week borrowed another. So here we are. We finally get there. We'll get there eventually. Yeah. Come here, quick one, right? So we're going to go right back to your youth. If you have a better memory than I have, we can go back that far as you. How did you get into this gig originally, Larry? Did you do a bit of hunting, a bit of fishing, or both, or what way was it?
Well, I was born in the town, so I was out in the countryside as much as I could get between fishing for eels and fly fishing and everything. And as the years went on, I got into the shooting, myself and buddies, and we got pigeons and dogs and anything got to do with hunting and racing, and that's how we got into it, you know.
Yeah.
And we started shooting from 7 years of age, being dragged across fields.
Yeah.
And just from the very first shot, I was hooked, you know.
Hooked, yeah. So what young lad doesn't like guns and dogs and fishing and all that kind of stuff? It's we're nearly drawn to it, aren't we?
Oh, that's it, exactly. Yeah, it's absolutely fabulous to be out in the countryside, and in the latter years, then I got involved in shooting deer, and that brought it to a different level. And it's fabulous to be involved with it, and it's fabulous to be out in the countryside early morning and listening to the birds singing. And where would you get it? Like, you'd get it nowhere.
I tell you, we kind of always say it here. You know, there's never a morning or an evening that you go out and you'd say, "Geez, I regretted going out there," and you could come back drenched, or you could come back absolutely hammered after getting the bit of sunshine like we're after getting today, but you never come back and say, "Geez, I regret going out in that one." You know, you always come back with some kind of a story or a bit of an old smile in the face. Anyway, so I think we've all that in common.
Well, a bad day's hunting is better than a good day in work. That's how I look at it.
Now you couldn't have said it better. And then I suppose coming on then, Larry, you obviously started with the fishing, into the bit of shooting. Was it mostly game you were after, pheasants and woodcock, the usual crack?
Yeah, pheasants more so than anything else. As we're in down here in Carlow, woodcock wouldn't be in abundance, but we do get woodcock there. We could get a dozen of them a year. If you went looking for them, you'd probably get more of them. But pheasants, I got into pheasants, and when I was about 13, we were shooting up in the Carlow countryside, up around Bennekerry. The countryside was full of pheasants. We're shooting along the burn. There was ducks and teal, and it's a different time than what it is now, and it's only 25 years ago, you know.
Yeah. And come here, did you? How did you get into kind of the rearing aspect? Were you rearing a few pheasant, or were you just involved in the bit of breeding in the club, or what way was it?
When I started shooting, I was going around shooting with a few boys, and the father says to me, "If you're going to go and get into shooting, you may get into shooting right." So
Yeah.
he went up and he seen the local gun club where he's from, up in Kernestown. He went up and seen the late Jim Butler and got me into the club up there. And from the very first day I went to do a bit of work on a pen, I was hooked on pheasants. It was actually around this time of the year, maybe a little bit later, and we were preparing the pheasant pens of a Saturday morning, and I went up and I got in and start rooting, start cable tying up a bit of an old pen there that's still standing today. But I got hooked on it from that day onwards, and I just to be involved with game birds, and just I found it very
It's
appealing,
addictive,
you
isn't it?
know.
Yeah, yeah, it's addictive. It's kind
Yeah.
of, there's nothing like still. I don't think no matter where I am or what time of the year it is, when you see a cock pheasant's head rearing up outside of a bit of a bush or a briar or something, it gets the heart fluttering, doesn't it? You know, no matter how many of them you see.
Oh, sure, that's it. Sure, we'd be going down. My wife is from Wexford there. We'd be going down to Wexford, and the little lad would say in the back, Daddy, you didn't see that cock pheasant, but I did. So
There you go. There you
he's
go.
7 years of age, and it's it's in him as well, you know.
Yeah, the mantle has been passed, says you. Yeah, I think
That's it, yeah.
probably the same. That's a common story, I'd say, in a lot of hunters' cars. You know, I'd dropping the kids to school, maybe, or collecting them the odd time, and like that. Um, one of them, or there'd be kind of like nearly a competition to see who could spot one, or if you could spot one. And Jesus, it'd be the talk of the place if somebody seen it and the other person didn't. So it's a bit of crack, you know.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, yeah.
And then I suppose moving on, then, Lar, that kind of brought us on. How, after all of that, how did you get involved in Grey Partridge?
I got involved in Grey Partridge one night in Bangstown at a meeting of the Carlow Region Game Council. There was two men there, Johnny Hutton from the Tinryland Gun Club and Martin Townsend, and they were talking about this Grey Partridge. And me being a chap from the town, I says, "What the God? What's a Grey Partridge?"
Yeah,
So I went home anyway and Googled it, and up comes a Grey Partridge. So I says, "Jesus, I'll look into that." So I looked into it and got involved with the NARGC. Well, I was heavily involved at that stage, but I got involved and I got talking to Derek O'Brien up in North Dublin, and all of a slap I had 2 or 3 pairs of birds, and from that day on, that was in 2015 or 16, and I'm up to my eyeballs in them now.
you go from strength to strength.
Strength to
And
strength, yeah.
tell us, I suppose you're I'm not going to say you're new to it. You're 10 years deep in it now. But as the fella says, you're learning something every day in this gig. As I can attest, every day you go out, you learn another bit. But I suppose like that seems like a baptism of fire. You got a breeding pair. I know very very little about Grey Partridge, only to and what I see is I've seen a couple, and I've seen probably more obviously over in the UK. They're a lot more popular over there, or a lot more present anyway. But I suppose what bring us back, I suppose, a little bit of the history, if you can. It used to be a game bird, is that correct?
Oh, that's it. It was a game bird, and it was in the Carlow countryside. I can't speak for other parts of the country, but there were back in the 70s and 60s here, just outside the town. There was coveys upon coveys of birds,
Yeah,
and the lads would go off shooting there, and they'd have a great day hunting, and maybe then that evening they might go for a partridge, you know. And
yeah,
there were in the countryside in abundance. Then just over the years with the way farming practices change, if you look at it like 30 years ago when they were cutting hay meadows, they'd be going with a 135 tractor or 65 with a little mowing bar 2 meters on the back or a meter and a half, and they'd be doing 5 mile an hour. Now, with the way farming practices is, they'll be going up the field with a John Deere doing 35 mile an hour cutting the silage field, you know.
yeah. With a couple of meters spread, in the
Well,
double figures, you know. Yeah,
oh, that's it. Or it could be up to 6 meters. I don't know myself, but it's just that, and then predation and things like that on top of it, you know.
yeah. I think that's. I was saying there. one of the things they're just looking over at the UK, probably just speaking on the predation, is they hammer their predators over there, and I suppose I didn't, we all do it because we obviously know there's a need for it. And I suppose gun clubs around the country here have the issue of trying to get lads to consistently do it. But I know over there, I couldn't believe how many partridge and hares and pheasant were on the ground. And I was talking to, and we were hunting there for a week or more. I didn't see one fox, which is and magpies, very, very rare, or greys. So it just probably attests to, although absolutely there's the farming practice has a huge part to play in it. Now that we have them type of farming practices, predation control is even more imperative, I suppose. Would that be the case?
Oh, that's 100%. That's it. Like there's 3 stools, as they call it, for rearing birds, and you have to have your habitat, you have to have your predation done, and you have to have feed.
Yeah.
And that's what we supply to the Grey Partridge. For the trapping and shooting the foxes. There's a chap here in Bangorstown, he's the chairman of the Bangorstown Gun Club, Owen Williams, and the chap lives, breeds everything fishing and shooting, so it's very easy. He comes with me, he's texting me there, will you go for a lamp, and do you want to go for a lamp? He's just he's very helpful, like,
Yeah, and that keeps it in check.
It's a team effort, like everything from there now. For the last 2 weeks, the grass has to be cut around the pens. Pat Nolan is looking after that, and I look after the birds, their water, their feed, the bantams that go along with it. Then myself and Owen Williams look after all the things predator,
Yes, and you're saying there just the grass has to be cut around the pens. What's the requirement there, Lars? Just to keep it tidy, or is it to help with predation, or what's the
but yeah, first of all, is to keep it tidy, and then you want to keep it away from your electric fence.
Yeah.
But if you have long grass, you're going to get disease and gape and things like that into the pens.
Okay.
So all the pens, the grass will be cut tight on them.
Okay.
So it's a bit of work then, and you're kind of moving birds from out of high to medium grass into low cut grass. When they are laying eggs, like,
Okay, and come here, going back there, a clutch of partridges called a covey. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And to talk us through, I suppose, the breeding habits, or their ground nesting, obviously, would that be?
Oh, the ground nesting birds, yeah. So in a covey, you'll have a cock and a hen, the mother and father, and then you'll have a covey of birds. In the wild there now, as we are breeding the birds, we're also letting them out on lands just outside Bangorstown, and we have them breeding in the wild. And we had a covey of 16 birds in total. That was the biggest covey that we had that was bred in the wild.
Wow.
But they're very family orientated. So if you've seen a few videos that I shared on birds, you could have 2 coveys or 3 coveys of birds coming together, and you'll see them chasing after each other and diving after each other. Well, they wouldn't be in the same covey. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. So they're jostling with the other covey for
territory.
Yeah. Very good. And and are the males monogamous to the state of the one hen, or would they cover a couple, or what way does that work?
Oh no, one hen, one cock.
That's it.
At this time of the year now, we'd pair off. So, and in the pens there now, we'd have a pair of birds. But then you'll have a hen come around, and the cock will take a fancy to the hen that's outside the pen, and he'll have no interest in the hen inside the pen.
Okay.
So then we have to set up a trap, catch the hen outside the pen, put her in with the cock, and take out the other hen. Wow. If you were to leave them 2 hens in together with the cock, the hens will fight and one of them won't survive.
Wow. So it's typical male. They want what they can't have, Lar.
Well, it can happen the other way around too. I often had to catch a cock that was outside it for the hen to just they run together in a pen. So early in the year, say January going into February, I could have 5 cocks in a pen and 5 hens in a pen.
Okay.
And I have them all ringed. So I'd have 1 blue cock, 1 red cock, 1 yellow cock. And when I go over to the pen, then I'd be looking at the birds, and they'd be starting to pair off. So there could be a cock and a hen, and it could be a white ring and a yellow ring, and I'd write them down on my hand, and then I'd walk into the pen. Of course, the birds will scatter,
Yeah.
get mixed up. So then I just go back to my hand and say, right, it's the red cock I'm looking for, and I take them out, and then it's the white hen, and I take them out and put them into their own pens.
Okay.
At the early stages, I didn't ring them, and confusion was
right.
90.
Yeah. And come here, do we know, Lar, if they stay kind of monogamous year after year? In other words, will the same cock go back to the same hen year after year, or does it be changed up, or do we know?
I do not know that, to be honest with you.
Okay,
I don't know that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then I suppose that they're not a game bird anymore because of numbers. How depleted are they? Like, in terms of numbers, how many do we have in the wild, or do we know?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey there, I'm Bellamy Young. I'm an actor and a producer. I've been working with the global humanitarian organization CARE, and I am so excited to invite you along for my new podcast, She Leads with CARE. Each week, you'll meet some incredible women who have changed their lives and their communities.
We raise our voices for people who don't raise their voices to defend themselves.
Listen to She Leads with CARE now on your favorite podcast platform. New episodes every Tuesday.
Well, there was in 1993 they were taken off the shooting list in Ireland, and at that stage they were going to make a recovery and in a couple of years to be back. But when you take something off the shooting list, let it be a pheasant or a duck or whatever you want to take off that shooting list, if you take a Grey Partridge off a shooting list, then the gun clubs in this country do not protect that bird. Do you know what I mean? Of course, they're protecting it. They're protecting it because they're protecting pheasants and other things like that. And that'll be the up. But to when you remove a species off of off the shooting list, it's doomed. Like.
Yeah, I this is one of the things where obviously, I'd be active enough on the social media and stuff, and this is one of the things that gets kind of thrown back at us. Like, it's the biggest thing, oh, like, sure, it's because of yous, that we don't see the numbers. And I try to explain as best I can that it's kind of contrary to belief. Like, it's like the way I'd look at it is, the reason you see so many cattle in the countryside is because there's plenty of people making use of both milk and beef, so it's a similar scenario. If nobody was using them, you wouldn't see as many, and that's the similar to the game birds. We obviously look after predation, which kind of, it's a byproduct. It benefits the likes of the partridge and obviously the corncrake now as well, which I know you guys are doing great work on as well. But if people could just get their head around it, that if there was a reason or more of a reason to protect it, then we'd have a huge amount of people who could actually protect it. It's all very well saying, oh, geez, we'd love to see that bird revive, but do nothing about it. That's what the majority of people do. Whereas gun clubs actually get out and do something like what you guys are doing, in bringing these numbers back up. It's hard to get that across to people by times,
Oh, that's it. Like, and NARGC are involved in Grey Partridge for a long time, a long number of years, and the birds that we have now came from Estonia, and they arrived from Estonia down to 2 Mile Boris, 9 pairs of them, and from that 9 pairs, I think I haven't the figures this year, but last year the figures on our breeding program from the NARGC, we were up to about 100 breeding pair, and that's from all different parts of Ireland. Like, we have clubs in Cork. I Island Valley, Dunmanway. We have clubs in North Tipperary, Laura Rackhaven, Stradbally, Hollow, Bantry in Cork. We have several clubs up in Meath, several clubs in Carlow, several clubs in Kilkenny. I think we're up to about 40 odd clubs breeding grey partridges in Ireland. Like,
very good, very good. And
you know,
and like that's aside from the breeding programs, do we know is there pockets of, or is there coveys in the wild still? And do we know roughly how many there is, Lar, or is that kind of
no, very few. The breeding pairs in Bora were down to minimum levels.
okay?
And did you ever visit Bora?
Not yet. I'm making my business this year. I'm going to get up there.
Well, Bora is an absolutely fabulous facility up there. I don't know. I think they could have 35 or 40 breeding pair, and the work with us, they're been after being very helpful to us, the National Parks and Wildlife there, and they'll give us birds and tips, and they're after being very helpful. But if you ever had a free afternoon, it's well worth a visit up to Bora. Now, I think that you can't just walk in on top of the Grey Partridge project up there. I think you'd probably have to make an appointment to go up and see it. But absolutely fabulous, phenomenal.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, that's like if we're talking there, you were saying we're up to 100 breeding pairs, and that would, the average kind of what would you say? How many eggs will a hen set down in a sitting, Lar, to cover?
See, it works like at the moment there now. They're breeding and they'll start laying eggs shortly. But what they'll do is they'll lay an egg in one corner of the pen, they'll lay one under the feeder, they'll lay one here, they'll lay one there. So what you're doing is you're picking up all them eggs.
Yeah.
And to utilise your breeding program, you're putting them under bantams.
Yeah.
So at the moment I'd probably put 15 to 17 eggs under a bantam.
Okay.
And so what I'll do is, from all the pens, I'll keep taking the eggs, and I could have, I don't know how many bantams I set last year, to be honest with you. A good few anyway, but I'll keep taking the eggs off the partridges, and then all of a slap, you'll notice that they'll have a little bowl in the soil, or you mightn't be able to find the hen.
Okay.
So what she's doing is she's after making a bowl, and she's buried on her little nest. And what she'll do is start laying her eggs on that, and she'll hatch out herself. Now, all the hens won't do that. Don't get me wrong. Some of them will just lay eggs.
Yeah.
And you just keep taking them away. But out of 10 pairs, I think the most I got was 6 to sit on eggs.
Okay.
And but they'll burn out a covey of birds then, and you just hope the time that they burn out the covey of birds that the weather is fine. And like you're talking about a little egg, you're talking about a little chick that's probably the same size as the tip of your thumb, like, you know.
Yeah, tiny.
And so if you don't want them getting wet, and you don't want it windy and getting wet and windy, and then you have the dew of a summer's morning on the grass, and if it's windy, and you know, so
yeah. And speaking of that, are they native to Ireland, Lar? Were they back in the day?
Oh yeah, they're native.
Yeah.
The birds that we have are all native to Ireland.
Okay.
What they did, I'm not too well up on it, but what they found was when they did the DNA testing on the birds that we had here in Ireland, that the DNA and the birds in Estonia were the closest match.
Okay.
So what they did was they went to Estonia and they brought home 9 pairs over. Now it was big, at a big cost that time, and I think I was talking to Derek O'Brien today just to get a bit of information off Derek. Derek is a seasoned campaigner on the Grey Partridges for the NARGC, and it was a high cost at that time for them birds because they had to stay in quarantine for 3 weeks and that after travelling from Estonia.
And hope they didn't die in the meantime. And I think they're probably, as like what you said, they're brittle enough birds, so they would be susceptible, I would imagine, to
They're brittle. They're brittle when they're born, when they're little chicks. But when they reach adulthood, they're as hard as nails. Like
Are they?
I went out this year gone, and in the snow, when the pens were covered in 8 inches of snow, and the birds were still there and twerking and chirping away. Like they're very hard, and when you get them to adulthood, they are hard and resilient birds.
Okay.
So they are.
Do we know how they got into Ireland, or is that something that we don't know as of yet?
Oh no, I don't. I wouldn't have that information, or how long
they're here.
But they're here from a long time now, anyway.
Yes, yeah. And come here, Lar. The in terms of their flying, do they like, for instance, will they stay in their own patch, or do they like to migrate a little bit to other pastures, or what's their kind of movements?
No, they're very territorial now, to be honest with you. They fly very low and very quick. So the like, if you raise them, if you walk on top of them and raise them, or someone is running with dogs, they'll get up, they'll clear the hedge in that field, might go on a little bit halfway across the next field, and they'll land down.
Yes, yeah.
So they won't fly far, and they're very territorial.
Yes.
But then we have let birds off in Killalane, where we release them there, and Jim Brown's land, and Joe Summers's, and we have seen them birds, coveys of birds, cross the river, which is the River Barrow, which is probably it could be 30 meters wide. So they have crossed the River Barrow and headed for Loughlin, up to Ballinaboli, headed for Nurney. So, which, as a crow flies, wouldn't be far, but it could be 3 or 4 mile, like, you know.
Okay.
But we'll be letting out coveys in different parts of the farm, and the other coveys will be pushing them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's probably probably similar enough. In terms of their behavioural traits, with pheasants, kind of, they won't move 100 mile away. You know, they'll kind of stay reasonably close to where they're released.
Oh, that's it. It all depends what way you release pheasants. Like, we used to get rear the pheasants in the pens and get them in crates and let them out, and we just found it a pure utter waste of time. So in the last 5 or 6 years, we went off and we invested in Harris fencing. So what we'd be doing, we would be putting our pheasants into release pens, and we'd be letting them off 3 or 4 at a time. Yeah, and just have feeders around, and to be near game crop, and Jesus, the amount of birds that held over the last few years compared to other years, it's just. And actually, we did it last year. We said we had 30 birds, 30 cocks in the crates, and I just said to Owen, we're going out one day. So we bring up these, and let them out straight out of the crates, just for curiosity, see what happens. And we let them out, and we went down actually that area on the first morning of the season. I think we've seen 2 or 3 cocks out of 30.
Yeah.
Just weren't there, and like we'd be, except for Owen Williams, we'd be out shooting foxes 3 or 5 times a week, you know.
Yeah. So it wasn't because of predation. It was they got up flying, and they kept flying until they found somewhere that they fancied. But as you said, that's probably the story around the country now. I think we're getting better, because people like yourselves are giving tips, and we're getting tips off each other and sharing the wealth of knowledge that's out there.
Well, we were outside Bangstown there 3 years ago. When we started that really first, we put in the pheasants into the pen, and if anyone asked me how many foxes we shot in that field, and you told them the answer, to tell you were a liar. Yeah. We shot 37 foxes in that one field in the time between middle of September and the end of November. We shot 37 foxes in that field.
Wow.
And we'd be shooting foxes on a regular basis, as I said already. But what we noticed was we switched from lamps to terminal, and we noticed that tonight, when we're standing at the gate looking across the field, we'd be picking up a fox 2 or 3 fields away, and the next night he'd be closer, and the third night he'd be walking around the pen.
Yeah.
And we'd see them, because the area we're using the HIC micro FQ50, so it's one of the high standard HIC micros, and
Yes.
Owen has one of the high end thermal pulsars.
Yeah.
And like we were able to take up things at a long distance away, but the foxes are just, you could see them 3 fields away or 4 fields away, because we're up on top of a hill, so you'd be able to see them. And just night after night, they'll start coming closer until they're walking around the pen.
It's hard to describe to people, because most people only see the odd fox, maybe crossing a road, or they might see him sneaking around the field or something. But it's hard to believe or to get other people to comprehend how many of them is actually out there until you're out.
Oh, that's it. And the way things are gone with technology, like we lamped, and over the last 2 years we're after switching from terminal. Now we are still using the lamp for shooting the foxes. We're just using the handheld spotter, and the difference it makes, like we'd see the fox, we'd set up the rifle on the sticks in the exact area he is. Owen gives me the nod, I give a bare little lamp up on the fox, bang, fox is gone. Do you know what I mean? Like, are you there, Anthony? Are you gone?
Now, Lar, I think you were chatting away to yourself, and I was chatting away to myself there, and neither of us could hear a word each other was saying because of a technical issue on my side. So apologies about that.
So these things happen. Don't worry about
it. We're going to rewind a little bit. We just finished up. We were chatting there about pheasants and pheasant release pens and stuff, and predation control and the benefit of that, obviously. And then one thing that kind of sparked me interest there, you were saying one of the reasons the grass is kept low for the partridge is to stop a disease they commonly get. What's that called, there?
Well, they do get several diseases, but the biggest with the Grey Partridge, our biggest problem would be gapeworm.
Okay.
And the gapeworm is in the soil, and if you ever heard lads rearing pheasants, same thing, same worm. Yeah, when the weather gets real wet, you have to dose your birds for gapeworm, and that's because it's in the soil, and the earthworms bring it up out the soil of a wet night, and they leave it on the surface, and the birds pick the gapeworm up then. So what we be doing, even with the pheasants could be wormed and everything could be rosy in the garden, and then we get 3 or 4 wet days, 5 wet days in a row, and we'll worm the birds straight away. And that's just to keep from getting gapeworm. You'll see them, if you are into rearing birds, you'll see the birds will be shaking their head and they'll have a little sneeze.
So you pick it up.
That's a gapeworm in their throat.
Okay.
And what they're trying to do is get rid of that gapeworm out of their throat.
Okay.
But the pheasants recover very well from it. The Grey Partridge, not so well. So you have to keep really on top of worming them. Now, this weather that we're having at the moment is absolutely fabulous for birds.
Brilliant.
But when you get the rain for a couple of days, you can be sure if you have gapeworm. I'm not too bad where I am in Banglastown, because we hired 2 acres of farmland, so there was never birds kept on that ground before.
Okay.
So the gapeworm comes from the birds and it goes into the soil, and it comes out of the soil of a wet night. The earthworms bring it up to the surface.
Okay.
So at the moment in where I have my partridges, we get more issues with the partridge or with the pheasants in the rain than the partridges, because the pheasants are after being there year on year. They're there, and it's just on the one patch of ground. We attended a game development meeting for the NARGC. It was a number of years ago now. It was in the Bloomfield Hotel in in
Mullingar.
Mullingar, and there was a vet over, and he gave a brilliant presentation. But what they did was they had a feeder and a drinker in a pen. And what they did was they went in and the birds were in the pen and they took a sample of soil and they went off and they tested the soil and whatever bugs they found in the hole, everything it was. So they cleared out that pen that day with the pen that the pheasants were in it, and they left the pen idle for a year. It rained, it snowed, the sun baked it for 1 year, and a year later they took another sample. And the bugs and the germs and everything was in the ground. There was still 98% of the parasites in the ground a year later.
Wow.
So that'll tell you about your pheasant pens. A lot of lads that do be texting me or ringing me, I have problems with my birds, can you come up? 90% of it is gapeworm.
Okay. And to try and stop, would lime in the pens, does that help, Lar, or is that a...
That's what we used to do with lime the pens, and but I was talking to a gamekeeper of late, and he was saying no, lime in the pens doesn't help. But listen, we limed them for years, and we thought it helped, but he was like, no, you're raising the pH in the ground. He says it won't help.
Okay.
It's hard to know, but these gamekeepers that from England are well educated that buy and sell me any given day of the week. So
yeah.
I
and what was his recommendation then? What was be the recommendation then? If you're not liming them, what should you do then, in his opinion?
He was on about turning the soil.
Okay.
Turning the soil and leaving them idle then for turning the soil and leaving them idle, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, look,
we built a pen in the Bangorstown Gun Club in 2017, and it's like the first year we built it, I think we had 700 birds in it, and on average we could have between 400 and 450 birds every year in it. And which gape won't, if you worm the birds, the gape won't affect you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you leave the birds, if you overcrowd, there's two things that'll affect up the quality of your birds, and that's if they're in a pen that's overcrowded, and that if you're not worming them and feeding them correctly.
Yeah. And that brings me on, I suppose. Like when I was over there and talking to one of the gamekeepers as well, they released quite early over there, between 6 and 8 weeks, because obviously the volume is there. In terms of your partridge, when do you start releasing, or what way do you go about that? Is it a phase release, or?
See, there's two different methods that it's not two methods of breeding. So like I said to you earlier, we have the bantam reared birds, and then we have the birds that are reared by the partridges themselves. So the bantam reared birds, what I try to do is the Grey Partridge are very family orientated, as I stated earlier. And if you have, even in the wild, if you have and I have done it several times in Bora, if there's a cock and a hen that's after failing the breeding season, if their nest is after being disturbed, or grey crows or something's after disturbing their nest, and they're going around as a pair of birds, if you brought a covey of young birds to that area where them birds are, and you put them in a little cage, and within a few hours you will see the cock and the hen walking around that pen.
Okay.
And they'll walk around the pen, and the boys in Bora especially, they'd be there, and they'd be there with their binoculars, and they'd be looking from far, and they'd see the birds in the pen bonding with the wild birds on the outside. So after a day or two, I'm not sure how long they'd let the bonding happen, but I think it's a day or maybe 2 days or even less. I'm not sure. But what they do then is they'll release the birds that they bred, with the wild birds, and they'll go off as a covey of birds and a new little family. And I do that as well with the partridges in the pens. So what I do is I have a little chicken or a little rabbit hutch there that my daughter had rabbits here one time, and I modified it. So what I do is I could have a covey of 6-week-old partridges that I'm after rearing on the bantam, and I could have a wild cock and hen in the pen. Now, what I'd be doing, sometimes I'd be catching birds out of the wild, there'd be birds coming back to me, and I'd be pairing them off. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's my favourite way of doing it, because these birds are after being out in the wild. You know what I mean? I could have a cock that comes back to my pen after being released. He could come back there in February and January when the birds start to breed, and he could be out since August beforehand.
So he's well versed. He's
So
well
he's
versed.
well horsed, and he's after being out in the wild for the hardest months of the year, you know.
Yeah.
So I'd put him in, and then what I do with that cock and hen, which I said earlier that didn't breed,
Produce.
that didn't go down on a nest themselves. I'd put covey of birds into me rabbit hutch. It's like it's just the top of a rabbit hutch. It's just wire,
Yeah.
where the cock and the hen can walk around it then, and they're in the same pen, but the chicks are in a smaller pen. And I'd leave them in it for a day, and that evening then I'd go over an hour before dusk, and I'd just walk in and lift up me rabbit hutch and walk out the door, and the wild bird, the mother and father, I'd be after bonding with them, and they'd stay in that pen then, and I'd release them as a covey of birds. Do you know what I'm
Very
saying
good.
to you?
Yes, very good. Very good.
But all these tricks of the trade, I'm after learning off of the likes of Derek O'Brien and Kevin Sadler and the boys over the years. Like them lads are after forgetting more than I'll ever learn. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, look, and you're doing a good service. You're passing it on. So, and if somebody, I suppose, wanted to get into, like, you know, for gun clubs around the country that want to get involved in this project, how did it start? How did it go about it, Lar? And what do they need? What's the basics that they need?
Well, there is a criteria that was developed by the Game Development Committee back in 2018 or 17. Well, it was there beforehand, but it was changed in 2018 or 19, around that time anyway. But there's a criteria there, and what happens is the criteria is sent out, the clubs read it. In the criteria states that you're actively doing predator control, that you have to have your records for the last couple of years in your predator control. Excuse me, that you have game crop available to the birds. And and that you have the backing of your regional game council. So it's not a massive criteria.
Okay. With game crop, is there a requirement for how much do you need to get started? You know, for if we're starting from a club with zero, how much game crop do you need to have, or would you recommend?
Well, sure. Like at where we are there now, like I have clubs that are after joining us with minimum acreage of game crop. Like they could have a couple of corners of fields done. It's just somewhere that the birds have to go. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, a bit of cover.
Like we have in Killalane there, where we release the birds. There was 7 acres of Christmas trees sowed, but that was, the Christmas trees now were only 6 inches tall at the time.
Yes,
and it was all weeds, and it was ideal for them. And the field next door to it, then we have the NARGC game crop, and there's 8 acres in that. And then we have all the cornfields, but sure, even the likes of it, like we were out there with the terminals checking on the birds and after the foxes and that. And there's nights there where we seen the partridges out in the middle of grass fields. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah.
We were out one night, and it was a freshly sowed field, and there was a covey of partridges. And I said to him, "Look at the fox. He's coming straight for him." And he walked straight. We were stopped in the jeep, and walked straight past the partridges. He wasn't 3 meters away from the partridges, and never even knew they were there.
Wow.
So they just get down so close to the ground, and the scent must go completely off them at night time, because the wind was blowing in the right direction for the birds, and the fox just had a beeline.
He's a beeline, yeah. He knew there was something there, but he couldn't put his jaw on it, as the fella says. Thank God.
He was going somewhere, but he didn't go too much further than that field anyway.
Yeah, I can imagine. Game over. And And then I suppose, what's your hope for the future, Larry? How far do you hope to push this, and do you intend to keep going? And what's your end game here? What's the goal?
Well, when I was asked to become the Grey Partridge coordinator for the NARGC, it was a very fancy word, the title that they gave me. But when I started, there was 8 clubs involved. And out of that 8 clubs, that the names I got, there was only 6 of them that was doing anything with partridges. And after a few years, see, it takes things like getting on the ear to the ground and the podcast to get the information across the clubs. At the moment, we're nearly in the 4 corners of Ireland with an NARGC club that's involved with the Grey Partridge. I think we're up to about 48. I'd have to sit down and have a look through it. But I think we're up to about 48 clubs. And the more clubs we get involved, the better.
Yeah.
The bigger we're going to be, the stronger we're going to be. And what happened, like, you have Derek O'Brien up in North Dublin, a fabulous setup. And if you're ever up in North Dublin, up near the airport, it's well worth a visit as well. But
very good.
Like, what we're trying to do is get into with this bird flu and everything that's coming around the place. Like, we want to safeguard the Grey Partridge. So that's why they developed this. The Derek's is the big brother project, and mine is the little sister. So just that we can safeguard. God forbid anything happens in North Dublin or Carlow or any of the big clubs, like down in Laura and Rock Cabin. They have I don't know how many breeding pair. They could have up to 20 breeding pair of birds. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So we're trying to safeguard the birds that we have. And the end game is that they're in the countryside in abundance. And I wouldn't like to see them shot in my time, but that's because I think I did a calculation last year that I put in about 650 hours into Grey Partridges last year. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, yeah.
But I can see the argument for if they are being shot that to be more clubs getting involved and that, but I think we're a long way off that.
Yeah, I know. I know in certain part of countries, I know it's, again, going back to, we went over to Hungary, and I remember, there's a requirement over there, for clubs to be able to shoot pheasant, to have to release X amount of birds, and X amount of them have to be female. So it's kind of like, if you want to shoot them, you have to do this, you have to do X, Y, and Z. And I wouldn't be adverse to that type of a system in any of the game birds, because it means that there's a bit of work. We all know there's plenty of work to be done with them. But if you don't put in the work, you don't get the reward, and that's the. And I know this is more of a labour of love for you now, because you're one of the guys who kind of got this thing off the road. So it's kind of probably hard for you to envisage them ever being shot, but please God, we'll be able to at least have that conversation at some time. That there'll be so many of them that conversation at least will be on the table. I think that's the we'll know that the work is being done, and it's been fruitful.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it too. But even like the firearms in this country, like, you can go up and get a firearm, go in and get a farmer's permission, and go along and get your firearm, and yet you're out there shooting every day, and you're putting nothing back into conservation whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, if you go to apply for your firearms in the morning, there should be a thing there that is €80 for your firearms. You're a member of whatever club you're involved in, and you're doing conservation work. And I do see what you're doing in the schools with the incubators and everything. It's fabulous.
Yeah.
But if you go up to get your firearms, and you go in and you're applying for your firearms, and you're not a member of any club, or you're not doing any conservation, well, your firearms certificate for the 3 years should be €250.
Yeah.
And that money is put back into conservation in this country.
Yeah.
And that's the whole of all of it.
Yeah,
let's take and give nothing back, and just the way it has gone in the last 20 years, you have to be giving back. Shooting won't last if you're not giving back to it.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page when it comes to that. I know back, if I'm being honest, Larry, when I got into it first, I was probably one of them people where I wasn't educated enough. I wasn't what would you say, clued in enough. I thought that, oh Jesus, sure, sure pheasants just breed naturally, and the predation and all that kind of stuff. But quite quickly I came to realize that, if you're, as you say, if you're taking out a bottle, the bottle goes dry, and there's nothing going back into it. It just has to be done. I think it's hard to get young lads, especially, kind of around that way of thinking, because like ourselves, are full of, when we were younger, you're full of beans. All you want to do is get out and shoot, and the thoughts of going out and, feeding pheasants maybe and filling feeders probably is not the most attractive part of the gig, but when it comes time to, and you see more birds on the ground, and you see better results in the shooting season, I think that's where it kind of kicks in, that you're putting two and two together then, so, and it's our job, I suppose, to keep banging that drum, and keep the message going out there, isn't that it?
Oh, sure, that's it. Like since 2018, we're after winning 5 All-Irelands for the NARGC Club of the Year, and the effort that lads put in, is phenomenal. Like, you're not only rearing the birds, but you're protecting them. You're putting in feeders. Like, I think at any given time that we could have 35 or 40 feeders out, and all them come the early time of the year. You might be able to drive around October, September and fill them with the Jeep, but you soon learn that the ground is getting too wet, and next thing there's a bag of wheat on your shoulder. I remember one day that I went over to Quinn's in Ballinglass, and I think I filled the van with I think I had 15 bags of grain, and I put them all on my shoulder and walked across fields. I know after about the 10th one now, and I'm not a small chap, I'd be a heavy set chap, like.
You'd be like myself, you're well foddered.
Well foddered is right, yeah. I know that I was doing it, and I just says to myself, what am I doing this for? But then you see the results. You're going down the first morning of the season, and there's cock pheasants getting up everywhere, and you're letting on birds. He's not the greatest of bird. We let him on, he'll be grand in 2 or 3 weeks' time,
Yes, yeah, exactly, and that's the fruits of your labour, as the fellow says.
That's the whole of all of it, there's no saying that you'll get out what you put into it.
Exactly.
And you'll harrow what you sow, you know what I mean? So
exactly. And come here, in terms of feed, then, what do the partridge like? What's their go-to?
Well, what we'd have them on this time of the year is we'd have them on a breeder's pellets. We get it from Bashford's Feed. I think it's up in Virginia and Cavan. I think, I'm not sure. So they're on breeder's pellets at the moment, and we'd have them on wheat, and we'd have them on growers pellets, turkey growers.
Yes, yeah.
Well, the bison borer came down to me. I had them on wheat, and in the winter time, I noticed that the birds were losing a bit of condition, and the bison borer came down and they were saying, "Oh no, you have them on the wrong stuff. Put them on the turkey. Put them on the turkey growers," and the birds just plumed at it.
Brilliant. And that's tricks of the trade, isn't that it? It's a labour of love, Lar, and I hope you continue doing it. If anyone wants to keep up the good work, I know you will. If anyone wants to get a little project up and running themselves, who can they reach out to for a little bit of guidance and assistance?
Well, they can contact me as I'm the NARGC coordinator, and they'll get me on my email at larry.bolger15@gmail.com, and they can send me an email. Some lads ring me. I'd rather if a lad has sent me a text message, because I do the work that I do be in busy environments, and I have a lot going on, and lads would ring me, and they could go out of my mind for a week, and I'll be going back through my phone calls, try to get their numbers. But if anyone wants to email me or WhatsApp me, I won't be long about getting the criteria sent over to them. There's
brilliant.
There's at the moment in the NARGC, there's a funding there. The Carlow Region Game Council put through a resolution for funding for the Grey Partridge in 2017 or 18 of 16. We'll look for 15,000 and they took it off the floor to be looked at with the game development, and they came back with a grant of 16,000. So what that covers is for a new club starting up, that they get granting for their pens and electric fences and barrels for their feeders and drinkers and things like that. They get going. There's funding there, like,
Yeah.
on an annual
Yeah.
basis, like, you know. Now
And
for last year.
let's make use of it. Let's see, can we get...
That's what it's there for. Like, we'd rather
Yeah.
spend it on game boards than any other part of the organisation, like, you know.
Yeah. And I say, if anyone wants to, obviously they can reach out to the podcast. We can put you in contact with Larry as well. Please God, I might be touching base with you over the next couple of years when I get I've a to-do list that we're working our way through our own club here, as you probably know. So, but that's definitely something. I was talking to Shane O'Neill a few times about it. It's one of the dreams to have a small little project like that. Especially, I think it'd be brilliant for the schools. Because they're a lovely little bird. They're something that a lot of school kids probably will never get to see, or have never got to see. So wouldn't it be magnificent if we can start spreading that a little bit and getting them involved?
That's it, exactly. Like, in the early days of our project, we would have went in with incubators into the school, and we hatched out ducks and bantams and every sort of a bantam. We had every sort of an egg in for, and the kids were delighted. But them bantams today still are hatching out my grey partridges that the schools hatched out for me.
There you go. There you go.
You know, it's fabulous, and
a great bit of history to continue on, you know.
Oh, but that's it. And sure, the kids are fabulous. The kids are the making of it, you know.
Without a doubt.
And them are the kids that in a few years they'll want to join the club. I think in the Bangorstown club here, at our peak, I think we had 33 members that were under 14 years of age. Like, a lot of clubs have to realise that it's €10 for to join an under 14 year old into the association.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're bringing your son out to feed pheasants or go look at ducks or anything, they should be in the association, because the insurance they have is next to none, like, you know.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And exactly, and they're also part then of the club, and that's what we have to try and encourage. We have to try and encourage the next generation to take on the mantle from the likes of yourself and Richie Delaney and all these guys who are doing fantastic work around the place, and that's what we need. We need the next generation to continue on that work, and please God, we get this into triple digits rather than double digits, which has been phenomenal to get so far, Lar. So fair play to you, and
yeah, that's what it is. Like, that's what we need to bring the kids in. We need to get the kids involved, and then they'll carry the mantle, no problem. But it's up to us to get them involved. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
Well, Lar, I tell you, it's been a pleasure, my man. I've learnt more in the last hour and a bit there than I would have by reading Google. So appreciate you coming on. Continue success to yourself and all down in Carlow. Please God, I'll get down to see you one of the days, and we'll have another bit of a banter and a bit of chat. But in the meantime, as I said, thank you very much for coming on, and keep up the good work, and the best of luck with you.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Thanks, Lar. Appreciate it, dude.
Bye.
Over and out.